grandparents that loved me, that had big houses, we had big yards, and we had the freedom of the town to play in as children. And my parents were happy and everybody loved me. That's how I felt. And I was just a happy-go-lucky kid. Very, loved music already then, and had friends everywhere, and the whole town was just a friendly place. And then I started feeling differences when we had air raids. When, because I was 9 when the war was over. So this hit me between the age of 3 and 9, kind of hard. That was during the war. And so that's when things were changing. My father was gone a lot because he was drafted into the SS. And that was a feared organization, part of Hitler's forces. And I was my father's favorite, and it was very, very hard for him not to be there. And of course, more for my mother to do, for the women generally, because the men were in the war. But still, that wasn't so bad. We would visit him wherever he traveled, and stayed at places that were unusual, sometimes a convent, sometimes a hotel, sometimes just in a private residence with people. And then we would visit him during the day, wherever he was in the army, and his whole battalion would take care of me and fuss over me. So that was really very nice. So, but then it got worse and worse. And the first thing that I really remember where my freedom was at stake was when I had to go to a meeting once a week. At least it was like a brownie troop, sort of, Here we have the brownies and the Girl Scouts. There we had organizations where we talked about Hitler and we talked about the beautiful and strong Germany. And I hated it. And oh my gosh, I had to wear a uniform. And our leader was a big, I thought, nasty woman. And if I forgot something or didn't have my uniform or I was late, she was just awful, and my mother would get in trouble. And she had to show up in the city hall in front of elders and be reprimanded, and she was told that I had to toe the line. But it was so restrictive, and having to do something that you don't care to do was troublesome. Anyway, that was just one thing. But we also had to worry about, having the shades closed so the bombers and the airplanes would not detect us. And I forgot that sometime. I came home from school in the wintertime, and it was late. And so I went in the house joyfully and never thought about pulling the shades. So my mother came home just a little bit after me and had a conniption because I hadn't left the shades on. Well, sure enough, we were reprimanded again, So that's how it happened with every little thing. Then I remember my mother talking about guns and treasures that my father had, and we had to put them somewhere where they were safe. Well, it wasn't the bank or safe deposit box. She buried them in the ground. It was all very secretive, and she did it at night, but somebody saw her and tattled, so she got in trouble again, and they confiscated, meaning that they took everything and kept it. And some of those things were things that were dear to my father, so they were sentimental for my mother, and that was kind of sad. Things like that went on all the time. We were watched. Another thing, I was in 2nd grade, and I loved my teacher. Well, we had to say Heil Hitler, where you raise your arm and you say Hail Hitler. That was our greeting, and we were not allowed to use the words good morning or good night or good day or whatever. So one day I'm walking up the street towards my grandmother's house, and there comes my teacher, and I was so overjoyed to see her and said, "Oh, good morning, Miss Quayle." And she did the same thing. She said, "Good morning, Laurie. Where are you going? What are you doing today?" Well, we both got in trouble. I had to write 100 times, "I will never greet my teacher like that. I will say, Hail Hitler." And she was reprimanded as well. I don't know what she had to do though. And she never complained and she never told us. But it was sad, to not be able to say hello to your teacher like that, and then give her a hug or something. So those are little things. And then little by little it got worse because, we started struggling with food, with a lack of food. But we had food storage and we had big gardens. And it got really worse after the war was over. So
I heard that you boiled everything. Everything was the same texture, everything was the same flavor, and they were doing like food drops. And you were so grateful to finally be able to fry something.
I don't remember that.
My mom was telling me a story. They were so grateful that there were food drops. And they were finally able to fry potatoes because everything had been boiled. They were so grateful.
Well, we ate strange things. Towards the end, this was in the last year and then beyond the war, where we just didn't have any food. We used to have our cupboards filled, and everybody believed in a pantry and in a root cellar, and so we never lacked for anything. We had big gardens, and one time I came home with my mother from the garden. We had looked for berries. There was nothing ripe, nothing whatsoever. So my mother was very sad. I remember her crying many times, and many times where she went without food to feed me. We came into the kitchen, and she went from cupboard to cupboard in the kitchen looking for something. The only one and only thing we had was flour. So she boiled water, and she took the flour and the water, and she twirled it around like this in her hands till it made like a little lump. And then she dropped these lumps in that water, and that's what we had. I remember another time where we couldn't wait for the chickens to lay any eggs, and laid one. We had one egg. 3 people shared one egg. That was supper. So it was stretched a lot, with water and or milk. I had to go every night to a farmer who had a big shepherd dog that scared me half to death because he was trained to attack people, because many people came begging for food, and I had to go there and get milk. I went there with a metal can, and I stood by the gate shivering, waiting till somebody heard me and came to the gate to pick me up, and then they take me to the stable and fill the can. And I had to go home, and it was always at night in the dark. First of all, I guess because the cows had to be milked at dinner time, and in the winter time that would be late already and dark, and it was scary for me. So and we made do with all kinds of food. We ate apples and potatoes mixed. That was a treat because it was a little sweet, and that was it. It was like mashed potatoes, and that was all there was to it. So yeah, lots of things were boiled, but we still had lard. If we butchered, every stitch was saved, every drop of fat. And then finally we didn't butcher anymore. There weren't any pigs, there weren't any men to do it, to take care of it. And so, yeah, that, you know, my mother was often hungry. She never talked about it much, but now that it's, you know, that it's all over, when it was all over, then she told somewhat some of those stories. She also had to do things that she didn't like to do. She went to this guy that had an oil mill. They milled nuts, and she had to beg. You know, my children are hungry. Will you please give me some? And I sometimes went with her. We had a little wagon, and we put my little brother in there. And my father never knew my brother. He never saw him ever. He was born in 1944. He had a picture from when he was 3 months old, and that's it. After that, there was no more contact between him and us. And so my brother never got to see him, and my father didn't know him. So I'm very happy that in our church we can go to heaven and be together. So I'm looking forward to that time when they can get to know each other, and I can get to know them better too. And